Hello. Today we are going to be reviewing basic fraction concepts. And we're going to start with our math message. So what I would like for you to do right now is in your notes, I want you to list 3 ways that fractions are used outside of our math class. I've got some examples here on the screen. See if I can't get them to work for me. All right, so one of them would be I might have some shoe sizes, and this just happens to be women's shoe sizes, but notice each one of these have fractions, most of them anyway. So that would be an example. Another example would be if I had a map with a map scale, and oftentimes they will give you a number, a decimal, or a fraction in that math scale, or map scale, sorry. So when we look at the scale at the bottom, it says 1, we have a colon, and then we have 10,000. So basically that means 1/10,000th, which happens to be a fraction. And then last but not least, we have recipes, and recipes often will have fractions in them as far as teaspoons or half a teaspoon or cups or half a cup, 3/4 of a cup, and things like that. So those are some examples that I pulled from your book. You might have some other examples. So that brings us to vocabulary today. We have several vocabulary words that I want to make sure that you understand. Some of them may or may not be new. It should be a review for you, however. Our first one is fraction. And a fraction is, it's always a fraction or part of something. For example, half of an orange or 3/5 of a mile. All of those would be part of the whole, which brings us to our second one, which is whole. And anytime we refer to the whole, that is the one or a unit of something. We have mixed number, part whole number, and part fraction. So anytime we see a mixed number, it might look like a whole number, like 2 2/3. That would be a mixed number. So as you can see, we have a whole number and we have a fraction together. We have our denominator, which is the number below the fraction bar. It names the number of equal parts. We have numerator, which is the number above the fraction bar. It names the number of parts. So if I had 5/16, this is my numerator. I'm just going to abbreviate with an N. And this is my denominator. Abbreviate that with a D. Okay, one of the things that you're going to be doing with this lesson is you're going to be taking pattern blocks, and you're going to try to figure out what fraction a certain pattern block is of another pattern block. For example, if I have the hexagon there at the bottom in yellow, and I wanted to know what fraction of that hexagon would be trapezoids, for example. Well, if you look at your pattern blocks at the top, the trapezoid is red, and it looks like I can fit 2 trapezoids on top of that hexagon, and then that would give me a whole. So a trapezoid would be 1/2 of the hexagon. So if I divided that like so, I should be able to fit 2 of these trapezoids to form one whole hexagon. Okay, let's say that we were looking at the hexagon once again, and I wanted to know how many triangles up here, the green triangle, how many of those would fill or make a whole. So those would work out a little bit differently, and you'll have to excuse my line here if it's not straight. But I could fit how many of those triangles on there? That would be 6 triangles. So if I only had one triangle on that hexagon, that would be 1/6, because it takes 6 of them to make a whole, and I only have one of those. So again, that's part of the whole. That's what a fraction is. Okay, if I happen to have 2 of them, then of course that's going to change my numerator to a 2, and I would have 2/6. Okay, hopefully that's starting to click a little bit. If I had 3 of those triangles, then of course that's going to be 3/6, or that's actually equal to 1/2. Okay. So, and we could continue going. If we had 4 triangles, it would be 4/6. If we had 5 triangles, it would be 5/6. And then, of course, anytime we have numerator and denominator are the same. So let's say that I had 6/6. That is equal to 1 whole. Okay. If I had 5/5, that would be equal to 1 whole, or 2/2, or 3/3. Any number over itself is equal to 1 whole. So you're going to do some exercises like this in class where you will have some different shapes. You'll have to figure out what the whole is and then what the fraction is with those pattern blocks. All right, another activity that we're going to be doing is decomposing fractions, which basically means that we're going to take them apart. For example, if I have the fraction 5/6, that is actually equal to 1/6 plus 1/6 plus 1/6 plus 1/6 plus 1/6. If I had 2/3, that would be equal to 1/3 plus 1/3. We can also do that with mixed numbers. If I have 1 2/3, that would be equal to 3/3, which, remember, this is a whole, so that represents that number right there, plus 1/3. Or, in this next example, I have 2 1/2. That's equal to 2/2, because that's my whole. So am I going to have another of those? I am. So now when I look at this, I realize I forgot to write that second one. So that would be representing that 2 as my whole number, and then of course I have my half. So 2/2 plus 1/2 plus 2/2 is equal to 2 1/2. All right, to summarize what we've talked about today, we have reviewed our fraction vocabulary. We have decomposed fractions. And we have looked at pattern blocks and how we can use them to make fractions or figure out what the fraction equivalent would be to the part of the whole in that scenario. Thank you for watching.